Hey, man.
What up, Donald?
Nada, brother, man. I don't know about you, but I have been researching the shit out of this one, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's bringing back a lot of stuff. I mean, from the '90s, early '90s, '93. This was big time news, man. Back then, the
And,
Waco, Texas massacre. It was definitely something we talked about a lot.
and I thought it was cool to be able to look through like my adult eyes versus my child eyes that I was as it was happening. Because, I had a different mindset and different thought process there. And now I'm looking as an adult and I can think through things a little bit differently. So I can't wait to get in this one, brother.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Me too. Like I said, it was something that resonated a lot. Like you said too, man, it is kind of
Hey, pasta.
crazy to think about it, how it is now versus when you were a kid, and when you were younger, in the way you could kind of sit back, research it versus kind of what was, put in front of you and stuff like that.
Yep. Hey, what's going on, Ryan?
Hola.
So why don't I go ahead and paint the picture for a lot of the people that don't know about the Waco massacre, right? So this was a gentleman named David Koresh, right? And he was a typical cult leader. He convinced people that he was the new Messiah. He was Jesus, and he had this huge camp. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was called, but there was a shit ton of people living there, husbands, wives, kids, um, fathers old enough to where their kids were married and all were still living there. As a matter of fact, the day they got caught was because of that scenario, right? Or not caught, but the reason why things went so bad was because of that situation right there. And we'll get into it. But they they believed, at least David did, and he had all the followers believing that there was going to be this huge fight, right? Similar to um, Manson, Charles Manson. He believed there was going to be this big fight, right?
Right.
Well, the only difference was he believed it was going to be with them against the government, and they were going to die. The government was going to win, and everybody in that camp was going to go up to heaven, and then they would come back down as like avenging angels and cleanse Earth. And that's what his beliefs were, right? That he was going to be this Messiah to return and take over Earth and just cleanse it from all the evil. And he had everybody believed, and he was almost correct, you know. So ends up what all started this, and then we'll get into it. So I'll give you the beginning, and then we'll get into what happened. The beginning, what started all this was a UPS driver delivered a package, and when he set the package down, a grenade rolled out of the box. So he notified the police. The police had been watching them for a while for other crimes, and could not get him on anything. So they notified the ATF. On the day that the ATF was going to attack, two news reporters got the insight that it was going to happen. So they were driving down, but they couldn't find the camp. They seen a mail truck coming down the road. They stopped the mail truck and asked them for directions to where it was at. And he told them where it was at. And then he said, "Why? What's going on?" He said, "Oh, the ATF's about to invade. We're news reporters. We want to get the story." Well, he was the father who lived there of a daughter that was married to another gentleman who also stayed there, who he had grandkids. I mean, we're talking about generational living in this camp now. So what did he do? He notified David, and they all got up and ready. So we'll dig into the conspiracy part of this now. So, what is your take on it, Bryan?
Well, I do see that, obviously the government had an issue with the compound in general. I mean, that it even existed, right? And I think you can definitely confirm that the compound had a lot of ammunition and big time firearms, right?
Yeah.
Enough to where they were able to push off the FBI and to where they even had to retreat and kind of call a truce. That's when they had a second, like, come up with like a plan B. And that's when, the whole tanks and stuff got involved.
Yeah. They had
Before we get, heck yeah. And before we get too deep into it, we'll talk, here's a little bit about the Waco situation to give you guys a little bit more of a preface. And then we'll kind of go through a timeline as well to help everybody kind of refresh their memory. And as you can see, man, the ATF, was heavily involved there. They weren't liking all the firearms and stuff like that. And, you think they were trying to get weapons off the street and stuff like that. I mean, that compound alone basically was a small armory, like I said, man, it was to the point where they had to bring in the big dogs.
So, the other thing too that they don't talk a whole lot about, right, is up to that point, before they went there, they already knew down to how much ammo, how much of everything that was going on in there, because they had a undercover that was in the building. So he was feeding them information of what was going on. And when the fighting took off, he came out of the building to get out of there, and but they already knew. They knew before they even got into it, and they knew that their gig was up, because the undercover agent said, "Hey, David already knows y'all are coming." So the ultimate of the premises of surprise was gone.
Oh yeah, no, they were ready. They were definitely ready for them. The amount of gunfire exchange, because I definitely went through and watched documentaries and things like that a lot on YouTube. But the amount of firing back and forth, and I mean, they definitely had to be fortified inside there to take as many rounds as they were able to take and stuff like that. I mean, there's just no way that they weren't fortified in there. Let's kind of go through a timeline so we can get ourselves freshened up better and kind of see how it all transpired from start to finish. Here we go.
man, you know, you reading that, dude. Massacre is the only way that you can put that.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, there's just no way to express it. You know, pregnant women, children. I mean, the age range was all over the place in terms of people that died. It was a major massacre. And, you know, you got to start to wonder at some point in time. I mean, the standoff started in February, ended in April. That's a hell of a long time. And some of the tactics that were used is they even were using loudspeakers to the point, because the way the FBI viewed it is, hey, if we're going to be uncomfortable and we're going to be up all late at night, you guys aren't going to be comfortable in there sleeping.
Yep.
So they went and just got these speakers and just put unbearable noise and sound right onto the compound, right into all their windows, everywhere they can get loudspeakers. So there was different tactics used. You know, you got to start to wonder how loyal these people had to be. You know, I mean, you do see that there was people released throughout time. He did release some of them,
So
but there's a hell of a lot of them that went down, and they fought all the way down to the end. You know what I mean? And so the amount of loyalty that he was able to gain is it's crazy. That is crazy how he was able to have people literally fight to their death for whatever he had them, believing, and they had them convinced enough to go die for the cause.
yeah, I mean, so let's talk about, let me first talk about what I found weird that the government did. You know, one, they got they ended negotiations after the negotiator got him to release some people, because they told the negotiator it wasn't enough. All right. That was after they had destroyed his car, drove over his fucking El Camino, and destroyed a bunch of other people's cars, right? So on top of that, when have you ever seen the government allow a civilian to go into a hostage situation to talk to the person? I've never seen that. They allowed David Koresh's lawyer to go in and talk to him, and it did no good. I believe he actually went twice. And the one thing that he said is, the one thing that he remembered from the walk up was all he heard was ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. There was so many rounds on the ground that every step he was stepping on brass everywhere he went. So I found that odd that the government would stop negotiations after they got what they asked for. They got a release of people. They had tanks on ground from the beginning. You know, when have we ever seen the National Guard called into a hostage? Have you ever seen the National Guard called into an active shooter situation? You know, it doesn't happen. They don't call the National Guard in to deal with law enforcement matters, but they did that day, right? So those things I found weird, right? Now let's get into one other thing that I thought was really odd. Just like you said, how much power do you got to have over somebody's mind to get them to fight to the death, right? There's one thing from this story and everything that I read that I never found. They never talked about drug use, right? Manson had a huge amount of control over his people, but they were all also doing acid and all sorts of other drugs, right? He used manipulation, blackmail, drugs, the whole 9 yards to gain control, right? So a lot of them wasn't necessarily so much loyal to him as much as hey, this is a great dude, lots of fun. There's drugs here, it's a party, orgies going on, so forth, yada yada yada. But they don't talk about there's no drug seizure. There's no talk of them going after drugs. So if there's no drugs in this, how did they get control? How did he get control of so many people?
And the other part that you got to question is how was he so? I mean, based on the documentaries, and I have seen the live footage of this dude, and heard footage of this dude, but the guy took him around to the his gut area. He said something about his something. Oh, his gosh dang, he said something shattered. His pelvic bones shattered,
Yeah.
and he took one through his hand or something. He's just sitting there talking to the negotiators, man. Like he's not panicking.
No.
He's not. He in no distress. Still ripping off scriptures to the guys. It's just crazy to me to think that how he was so like able to manage that through no kind of drugs or anything of the such. So it is kind of crazy. And like you said, and I don't know if it's back then that there wasn't as much access to education on things and things like that. So, there's not so much as way to be aware of a lot of things. So maybe it was easier to fall in line to a cult or to people that just sound like they're giving you a good life. Here, David Koresh comes in, can play guitar, he sings, he's knows the Bible, and he's,
well, let's face it, he's very charismatic.
Right. No, absolutely.
So it was not, hell, I listening to him talk, I liked him. I was like, yeah, man, this dude's pretty. He's just so laid back and friendly, and didn't have a care in the world.
Right.
Talking about the end of their life, and he's just talking like, what he did last night.
Yeah, like, and dude, while he's on the phone with the negotiator, you hear bah, 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 just like, I mean, it fucking sounds like a war zone going on in the background. He's just sitting there just ripping off the scriptures and talking like, I mean, like cool, calm, and collected. And he's just like, you guys need to stop firing. We got children in here. We got, He just keeps telling them time and time again, hey, listen, we got kids in here. Obviously, they weren't being able to do it. So,
nope, I have never been to Israel.
No, but yeah, man, it is a crazy story, and you got to think at what level was it that they just felt threatened by the guy? The government, the surrounding community. And to that point that they were just like, well, we're going to demolish it.
I think so. The state attorney, there was some conspiracy that she was like given a video of him saying, after I finish my book, we will all come out peacefully. Right? She denies that video footage was ever given to her. Okay. There is some belief that she was looking really shitty. It was an election year, because this had gone on for at this point, 8 weeks. And the more that the people listened and watched, the more they were starting to side with the Davidians, so they were losing the public support, and they were losing face, and I just ask myself, how desperate do you have to be to tell somebody to take an 88, for you guys that don't know, that's a track recovery vehicle, and tell them to ram the crane into the side of the damn building. I mean, that makes no damn sense.
And then they proceed to say that then, ignite or start any kind of fires, which
Somebody did.
yeah, like, and I mean, you got to ask yourself. I mean, yeah, did they set the fire? No, maybe not. They didn't go over there with a lighter and just start boom, but tear gas, smoke, all that stuff ignites. I mean, and not only that, but back in a good old tank, and who know what you hit when you backed in, but they definitely created the fire. There's no doubt.
So let me ask you this. How come the fire department was never called after the fire started? There was fire trucks there. They didn't let them come in. They said that they were afraid that with all the ammunition and explosives that was in the building, that it would get the fire department hurt and explode. But they weren't worried about shooting and ramming a building full of explosives and ammunition.
It's clear as day, dude. They had no intentions on saving anybody inside there. Besides, they didn't have any intentions on saving anybody that decided to hunker down in there. Like, it kind of was like, oh, you're gonna hunker down? Well, watch this. Yep. We're about to blow your shit up. And I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about some things that transpired right after it all, to kind of keep going down a little bit of the time lapse. But here we go. Like, after April 19th, when the compound burns to the ground after FBI agents and the armored vehicle smash the buildings and pump in tear gas. April 23rd, 4 days later, President Clinton defends government handling of Branch Davidian case, but promises a full investigation. 2 days later, April 25th, first body in the rubble identified as Koresh's brother-in-law, David Michael Jones. Then on the 29th, Texas, this is April 29th, 1993, Texas Department of Public Safety says the hunt for bodies has ended with 72 recovered. On May 2nd, Justice of Peace David Pereira announces that dental records and x-rays confirm that Koresh's body was found with a gunshot wound to the forehead. The gunshot wound to the forehead is something I don't think I ever knew. You know what I mean? Obviously, because when we were kids, I think that, at least for me, when I was, at the time that this came through, I think once the thing was over, the story was over, for us. To find out some of these things later, like the gunshot wound to the forehead, makes you wonder, when the place burnt down and everybody burnt and died with it. There was never any reports of him getting shot in the head. So it was either while they're ramming the tank in the building, they're still just brah, 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 and they ended up eventually, making their shot, or with the tank busting in, they might have had a sniper on point and they already knew exactly where David was. And that was kind of the whole thing. What we're going to do is simultaneously we'll bust it down and aim some shots in there and maybe make sure that the guy doesn't make it out alive.
So there was a ATF agent. I seen an interview from him. After that tank busted in, he went in behind that door and went in, right? He made it into the first room. And when he came in, I think he said to his left, there was a long hallway that went down. And he took some rounds, and I don't remember where he got hit. He got hit. And when he went down, he returned fire and killed the dude instantly, right? The dude instantly dropped. There was other people there, and he ended up getting back out of the building and crawled because he thought he was going to die. He was hurt pretty bad, and so there was somebody in there that was returning fire. Okay, so I don't think he could have shot David Koresh because that timeline is before the last time we hear from David Koresh. Right? There's still talks happening between the FBI and David Koresh.
And David Koresh even called his mom.
Yeah.
And told her basically, Mom, I'm gonna die. I don't know. I think that he just left I don't know if he actually talked to her or not. I don't remember, or if it was that he left a voice message on an answer machine for her. But either way, I do know that he reached out to his mom. He felt, I mean, he was shot pretty early in the game. You know, pretty early in the gunshot. I think it was shot day 1 or day 2, right in the first, like the beginning of the shooting.
Yeah.
So he was injured for almost 2 months at that point in time. By the time they decided to ram it down and just say screw it.
There was another person in there named David. He was being interviewed too, and he was definitely pro David Koresh. What's going on, Eric?
What up, brother?
He was all about David Koresh, right? Well, they asked him about the fire, and he said, I did not see anybody in here start a fire. He said they started the fire trying to burn us out. And then they asked this ATF agent, dude, up to that point, that interview with him had been real, like he just was telling a story. As soon as he said that, that dude got fucking aggressive. He's a liar, you know? And I was like, oh, that touched
took the defense on it. Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, I honestly do believe the government started that fire.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, if nothing else, the tear gas alone, when they're throwing a whole bunch of it in there, all that stuff. I mean, there's just so many things that could have ignited the fire, and for them to just sit there and act like, yeah, we had nothing to do with it is just pure. I mean, that kind of makes them look a little foolish, you know, and that's the part where you start to question it. And the other part about it is you got to look back at it, and with the sketchy amount of media back then, and there wasn't, it was a lot harder to get information out to the large portion, and whatever they wanted to control, they could control easily in terms of what information they want out there.
Yeah.
And at any point in time, I think anything can be put out in a way that they want it to be put out.
So let's play devil's advocate, right? And kind of just paint this picture. So you're an innocent bystander, and you're hearing the stories, right? So let's say he didn't die, he's in court, and you're the judge, okay? And you're getting the testimony from ATF agents, and then you're getting the testimony from a guy that had all these weapons, supposedly was having sex with everybody from the kids all the way up, who also thought he was Jesus Christ. I mean, whose story are you probably likely to believe? I don't think the government really had to try very hard. They just had to say, he's fucking nuts.
Well, they capitalized on that part, right? You know, and he made that part easy for him, especially back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in him having the arsenal that he had, just played into it all. They were able to use their narrative in the way that they wanted to, and all that, because first and foremost, they had illegal weapons there, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you said, how does it get discovered? A fucking grenade rolls right out. You know what I mean? Out of a package. You know, like,
yes, I mean, that's ballsy. Let me ship my grenades via UPS.
Well, and that's probably why the fucking shit takes so long to get to us now and to go through everybody's stuff is because they used to get nades in there, bro. I mean, damn. Like that's some crazy ass shit. Think
I,
about it.
I do.
And like, I mean, fuck, bro. Like the worst case scenario, you get your old package, like, all right, and then, oh shit, what the hell? Nate falls out, like, oh shit. Imagine being the delivery guy too, and that motherfucker rolls out in your truck. You just see a nade like, oh fuck.
Yeah. So, I never thought of this. I don't know why I never thought of this.
Wait, hold on. Hold up.
Okay.
Or was that sent by someone else to get them onto that property?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? What if that whole thing was a setup to begin with,
Just to
so
get
they could get their ass onto the compound? Like, oh, hey, that's weird. They fucking got that in the mail. Like that's what led us on.
Yeah, maybe. I never thought about that. But here's the other thing, right? Here's the other part that's so fucking weird. There's no talk, there's no proof, anyways, of any of these sex crimes that they talked about with him. There's no talk of drug sales. There's no firearm convictions, like shooting guns illegally, robbing banks, robbery, theft. None of those people had any run-ins with the law, right? So how were they getting the money for all this shit? Most of them didn't work. David Koresh didn't work. Some of them did have jobs,
I think he used his ministry type of, donations, take tithing, those type of things. I think that maybe that could be one of the ways that he was able to get some of his money. Because
Man.
yeah, you got to think about it, man. I mean, yeah, how else are they going to be funded, and who was funding them?
Yeah.
And what if let's just throw it into the fucking mix? What if the government was funding them to begin with, and it was just a whole thing to saturate the market and get them like, okay, well, we'll take out this whole bunch of folks that are, going to create problems.
Or maybe he was supposed to do something and didn't. Or he did and he was going to expose somebody. And so they just came in and said, let's silence this.
Well, that's a bigger question that you always got to ask in a lot of the things that go down. Why one individual gets an immense amount of. Don't tell me he's only David Koresh in the world, and there's not other crazy cults out there, but
Oh, there's been several.
Right. There's been several that have surfaced, and I imagine there's still more out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just the way it has been for years and years. Now they've just got to a level of knowing it's not acceptable and how to work around things and get them navigate in a way that it's not as seen as much. I don't think you know what I mean, or it's being caught as much, but there's a lot of things out there like that. But why did he get all this so much attention? You know what I mean? And the part about it is I think that they just saw, wow, this guy's pulling hundreds. This guy's he's got a whole compound of folks. I mean, there was a lot of people there, bro. They found 70 something dead, and they had already released. There was well over 100,
9 or 10 people that they released,
at least bare minimum. Yeah, because they were letting them out 4, 5, 1, 2 here, there. I mean, the numbers kind of probably added up, but
and there was some that came out. So
already, you're right.
When the ATF threw that tear gas in, they said that they expected a mass flood of people come running out, and they thought it was going to be a like fight to the death, that they were going to come out fighting and they were ready to have to return fire, right? And so they threw the tear gas, nothing. They threw some more tear gas. They heard David Koresh say, they're getting ready to gas us. Put on your masks, right? And so they threw like several things of tear gas in there. They even opened up some other areas with the other tank to get air going in, right? And they were standing by the door waiting for all these people to come running out. And like less than 5 people came out. It was like 5 girls came out.
Right. Well, from the sounds of it, man, it just, it really starts to sound like how, like I feel like they were never really meant to hurt anybody outside. And the whole thing for them was to protect their community.
Yep.
I don't think their weapons were to like, hey, we're going to mount up and we're going to go start a convoy and we're going to go ambush, this city first. We're going to take over them and then just keep penetrating, moving on in. I don't think that was ever their intentions. They obviously had their compound. People want to go there and live there. And that's the problem. They became a threat for whatever reason to the government because they're like, holy shit, man, they got a lot of weaponry. We can't have them have more than us, and we can't have them be more of a threat than, ourselves.
Yep.
So I think that the more you kind of dive into the story, as especially when, you're fighting against gun control always, and everybody always wants to throw in gun control and this and that or the other. What bigger picture than this? Like, well, look at these guys are cut. They can, sit there and arm a whole army over here in this compound. Yeah, but what are they going to do? What if they're there when some shit does hit the fan?
Yeah.
They're there. You would probably be happy to have that right next to your community. But them some bitches ain't going to give a shit about no one else except their compound, because everybody else around the community is like, oh, screw these guys.
I wonder something. So they called that Branch Davidson or something like that, right?
Yeah. The Davidians.
Yeah. Branch Davidian or something. Does that mean that they were one of multiple branches? Is there another, that just said, oh, fuck, we need to change the way we're doing things?
It's probably not too far-fetched to think that there was a cookie cut of what he had going on and people that were in his compound, because dude, that thing was, had been there for a while, you know what I mean? And they had enough time to prepare themselves. He had enough time to preach to people. He had enough time to build things up. So it's not too far-fetched to think that there's people that were inside or under his umbrella and looked at him as, hey, I'm one of your disciples, so to speak. Because if he's the Messiah, now he's got all these disciples and these guys are going off and of course, what are they going to say? Hey, look at us here after these burn the shit down out of, there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. So, bro, I don't think that your thought is a far-fetched thought by no means.
So it got worldwide news. I mean, this made it didn't start off that way, but it made major news, right?
Right.
To the point that in the documentary, they have video footage of them, the Unabomber. I lost his name.
Timothy
McVeigh selling bumper stickers outside the event. He had these Second Amendment and neo-Nazi and it had swastika bumper stickers, and they talked to him, the reporters, and he was like, the government's trying to take over, and he was already anti-government at that point. But how weird is it that you had this major government takeover, only for him to go and bomb a government area, you know?
And what's not to say though that he was a radical of all that and wanted to make a point of his own, and
Yeah.
obviously, dude, he probably was a big Koresh fan because Koresh fought against the government and said,
The death.
so and anybody that was anti-government or is anti-government would definitely idolize David Koresh because, dude, I ain't gonna lie, man. The motherfucker was he went down in the blaze of glory. Like, there's not a lot of people that would do that. There's a lot of people that cowered down. Imagine, hearing the fucking tanks just coming in and feeling the rumble from the son of a bitches coming. The sounds too from that place would have left. There's a lot of people that just could never have withstood that, even for a fucking 5 minutes, man. You know what I mean? So.
And like even with the heat, the building is burning to the ground, and one of the ATF agents says, right before the building collapsed, I still remember hearing them shooting at us.
And you know what? You do see a lot of people that go down as cowards, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to be honest with you. When you look at this guy, and I'm not glorifying him at all, but what I'm saying is, man, he sure as shit.
He believed in his
he walked his walk, he talked his talk, you know what I mean? And he didn't cower down all the way to the very, very end, where obviously things were set ablaze and dude took another last round to the dome. But he was obviously set and somewhat manifested this whole thing to begin with, right? And kind of, but it obviously didn't manifest to his ending, but he did manifest a big fucking chaos and havoc.
And it's weird how the things that played into it to bring his ending to fruition. Some reporters that got lost, stopping the one guy that lived there, who warned them. The one person that talked to the mailman was the only non-ATF person that knew that they were invading that day. And they got lost, talked to the mailman who lived there, and called back and told David that they're coming. Right? Now, again, maybe there's some other stuff behind the scenes that didn't make the documentaries. I can't vouch for the people that made the documentaries, but to my knowledge, there's no place that David Koresh antagonized the government, daring them to come to, because Manson's situation, where he believed that the blacks and the whites were going to fight and the blacks were going to win. And he was supposed to be on the top of this mountain waiting so that he could lead the blacks because they couldn't lead themselves. Right. And he got all this from a Beatles song. He believed that the Beatles was telling him that, and it didn't happen. So he had to start that war by acting like black gangs going into Hollywood and murdering people, but there's nothing like that. They don't talk about any of that type of stuff with David Koresh. So it is weird.
He was more of an antagonist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Versus what David Koresh was.
Right.
David Koresh wasn't antagonizing, there's
he
definitely was not stepping down to him and cowering down to him and anything like that. Straight up said, hey, we'll fight to our death. You know what I mean?
A different ATF scene commander instead of the one that was there that day would have changed this whole scenario too. So the news reporter not getting lost would have changed it because they would have had the ultimate of surprise. The person that gave them the directions not being that mailman, the different ATF commander that didn't tell the negotiator to stop negotiating, and not just that, but they told him, you got places to go anyways. He had some training that was coming up, so they told him to leave and put him on a flight and told him to go to his training, right? After he got hostages, not hostages, but he got people out of there, any of those steps change. And maybe we're not even doing this podcast.
Oh yeah, man. And there was a lot of opportunities for it to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, there, like I said, it started in February all the way through April.
Yeah.
That is a long stand down, man. And I think I saw somewhere that that's one of the biggest American tragedies in shootouts since the Civil War.
Yeah.
And so to think about that, that's kind of crazy. And like we talked about earlier, the level of loyalty and the level of commitment. And, obviously these dudes, I never really did a lot of background on all the people that were in there. I'm almost curious to see if there was some military veterans that ended up in that compound at some point in time and were fighting. But I mean, I think I'm going to look a little bit more into it and see in terms of the people, because I'll tell you what, man, the way they fought, they had a military manner to it, and
camp was set up strategically.
Right. Yeah.
They had a lookout tower.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle in that tower.
Dude, I mean, the FBI in the ATF had to sit there and say, hey, stop shooting. We need to get our hurt out of here. We need to get, injured out. I mean, it's like to the level they're begging them. Yeah, they're begging them. Hey, please stop shooting because we got to get our hurt guys out of here. That's how much damage these guys were creating. And I mean, obviously they kind of gave them that opportunity, and they knew David Koresh would feel he had humanity to himself. He obviously did. He cared about people genuinely enough to where he was trying to house everybody and lead them on a way. But
in that documentary, there was people of all races.
Right. No, absolutely. I've seen that in all ages. Yep. And like you said, generations of families. It became its own community easily. Did. Right. And it self-sustained itself, and that's where I think that another part of the government may have felt a little bit of a threat, and like, whoa, are these guys going to start operating how we are? No, we can't have this, because then, the next thing is going to be another one over here and another one over here. And before you know it, we're outnumbered. Yeah. We're already outnumbered, but we can't let them know that,
Yeah. I mean, it was really weird how, and not, like I said, not to glorify them, but
right.
But to also talk about how hard these guys were, those 2 months was without power and without running water.
Oh no. Yeah. They shut them down completely.
Yeah.
They were trying to get them out any which way they could. And like I said, that's how many different measures were put in place, and that's how many different opportunities were there. Obviously, like I said, these people were so loyal that they were willing to sacrifice their children, their livelihood, the chance to having running water, and subjecting themselves to absolutely crazy sounds.
Yeah.
They were playing music and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. I don't know if you've seen that, but that was crazy.
They said for 24 hours, they got to listen to the busy signal from a phone line. It was just nonstop.
I'll be honest with you, man. Them motherfuckers might get me out by having something like that, because I'm not good with repetitive sounds at all, man. Yeah. I'd be like, you better give me every tissue or whatever. I'm running my ass out there and saying fucking hands up because they got me here with the noises.
Yep.
The noises that was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, to
Spotlight
think,
fucking shining in their windows
and I don't know that if that was a new tactic that they have tried, you know, or if that was a tactic they've always known. Like, hey, they're all going through all their tactics through the handbook, you know, over here, like going through the book, like, chapter 8, fucking blow the music.
Yep. Start the jam.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
But they even did some like Sears school fucking tactics because some of those sounds was like babies crying and rabbits being fucking killed and
Oh man, they knew the noises and the frequencies and all those kind of things. So, yeah, I mean, mind games are it's hard, you know. So, and for them to withhold that and bear it, they either found a way to get rid of the sounds, and I don't know. It's just crazy. I like I said, now it makes me want to dive even further into the rabbit hole and go look at some, because I do know there's survivors of this.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of them were kids and now they're growing up. I would love to hear their versions of kind of where their mindsets are today with it all.
Yeah.
And you know, because obviously when you're a kid, your mindset is going to be completely different and you are way more easy to influence. You know, I mean, we always want to believe in the adults that we follow or that we're around, right? Like when we're born with our parents, we want to hope we got the best, you know, set of parents you can get, you know, and not everyone's blessed with that, right? I mean, you never know what you're going to get, but that's what I'm saying. Like, and a lot of these people are probably very lost. So David Koresh himself made them feel whole and made them feel loved and, you know, brought that all to them.
you know,
Serenading him with his songs and his long hair and stuff, like, you know.
and he made all of them go to church. They all had to come. You know, it was like I don't know, it was some weird like 5 hours a day was dedicated to prayer. You know, and they all had jobs on the community. You know, they all had their role that they played. You know, so
Yeah, I mean, it does, you know, it does sound like, you know, too, with the polygamy portion of it all and things of that nature that, you know, and I don't even know the polygamy part so much, if that was more of, you know, the government betray to it, or if that's legit was going down, because some of that stuff I think is very spotty in terms of the reports and things that you'll see from that nature.
I don't necessarily believe in the child part of it, right? Where they said that he was having sex with children.
Right. And I definitely would hope, and my mind likes to think that, yeah, hopefully not. And I mean,
I could see him having multiple wives, you know, ones that aren't married to other men that are there. You know, I don't see him like saying, "Hey, I'm sleeping with your wife tonight."
But see, you know, the flip side of it all is the government already had enough with just the weapons alone, the cachet of weapons that they had there and ammo to nail these guys down. They didn't really need the child stuff, all that kind of you know, the polygamy, the pedophilia stuff, all those kind of things. They didn't really need to pin all that extra on them. So, you know, it's hard to say, was that part of the narrative or was that part of someone's story? And that's what, you know, and just added on to the list of things.
If they had an undercover agent in there that seen him fucking children, I promise you that would have been, I mean, what better way to get the public on your side?
Right.
You know, and so why wouldn't those charges be brought up? You know,
I know they would, you know,
the parents of those children, why weren't they brought up on like child endangerment, you know, pornography or whatever for allowing it to happen? I mean, there has to be a charge just because you're not the one sticking it doesn't mean, if I hand off my kid to somebody that's going to stick it, then absolutely I should be held fucking just as liable. I'm contributing to it, you know?
I definitely feel like there could easily be a part two to this story, and it's kind of the aftermath.
Yeah.
You know, where's everybody at now? All the survivors, and kind of get that spill and get those stories, hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, get it on the books, man.
Yeah, I think we're definitely gonna have to re-travel down this hole and kind of get more of what the perspective is now from a different, what is it? We're at, damn, 30 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit. Just this smart 30 years this year. As a matter of fact, isn't that kind of crazy? We did it on the 30-year anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Not even meaning it, you know?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So it's your turn now, man. What are you thinking for next week?
I know, man. So next Friday we got to take off. I got to do my nephew's football game. They're always on a Friday, so I've already this one I have to go. So next Friday we're going to go ahead, take a breather, but when we come back, there's a couple things kind of going through my head. One of them is kind of the whole fire in Maui thing it's really heavy out there right now, so it might be something good to kind of go down the path. I think that's one that's still kind of gonna play out as time goes on, but it is one of those ones I think that a lot of people would probably like to hear a little bit about it, because there's a lot of like after stuff. I mean, are you familiar with the whole Lahaina fire and stuff like that?
Yep, I've been following it, the Fox News version. So I don't know if there's, if you go to ABC or CNN, if you're getting a different version, but
definitely go to YouTube and you just, in the search bar, put in the Maui fire, and you're definitely going to get more of the boots on the ground inside stuff from even the actual people who live there. There's even town hall meetings about stuff. I mean, there's so much out there when it comes to this whole thing. So I think it's going to be a good topic.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think we're going to find out that the same thing that's happened there is happened in a lot of places, like the Ohio fucking crash, where the government has just completely fucking said, fuck y'all.
Well, they're starting to say that these big fires and stuff are starting to happen throughout the country, and they're deeming them as, like they're completely, land's lost because of complete fire or devastation. Supposedly they're trying to make smart cities, and that's kind of one of the big things about it right now. If you look into these smart cities, looking, Google the smart city thing, and it's a whole thing that kind of plays into the rabbit hole.
Okay.
But definitely look into smart cities. Like I said, that's one of the conspiracies I've heard from the whole fire. That's one of the things is it's part of them trying to develop the smart cities, and rich actors and actresses are buying out land and stuff like that.
Imagine how cheap it would be to buy land from a town that had been leveled.
Right. And, and that's the part that makes you wonder, man. And there's also, like, I'm not going to get too deep into it because then we'll get into the next show. But
on hour 2,
there's definitely a couple things, and I like to do the video, so I got a whole bunch of things already I've been saving up. And if you guys haven't had the chance to go over and join us on our Facebook page, go join us over there, Conspiracy Fridays. I definitely try to post all different kind of conspiracies on there. Anything I find, try to put it there so you guys can go check it out, whether it's real, not real. As soon as I feel like it's a conspiracy, I put it right there in that Facebook group. So it's kind of a fun place to go check out all the different things that are out there, because there's a lot of rabbit holes.
Absolutely, man.
But all right, Don, you got anything else, man, before we head out?
No, man, I'm gonna spend the rest of the night setting up the new computer and everything else, brother. So this has been fun, man. I've been looking forward to this today.
Oh yeah, me too, man. And this show kind of makes you do a little bit of homework, and has to make you go back and refresh your mind. So I like that part about it. And man, I couldn't believe how much information's out there and documentaries are out there, especially on the YouTube side. You can definitely get lost in it. So, yeah, man. So start getting yourself freshened up with the whole Lahaina fire and stuff like that, because
I will, brother.
we got about 2 weeks before we'll be doing that, so we got a little bit of time to think about it. But all right, brother.
All right,
This
man.
was a good one. All right, man.
Guys.
Till next time, everybody.